a legend in the business, adult film actor, director, AVN Hall of Fame member.
Yeah, right.
The one and only Tommy Gunn. Appreciate you coming in, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So I got to know, so how did you get into the business?
Whew, what a story. Well, it's funny because Marcus and I have a similar background in that he did the dancing, right?
Shout out to Marcus Deegan.
Yeah,
He
Marcus
connected
Deegan.
us.
Yeah, absolutely. Good gentleman, wonderful fellow there. So he and I share that similarity. I did that whole Magic Mike Chippendale stuff years ago. I started about when I was 24.
So where did your career start?
Started Jersey. I
Oh,
was
okay.
Born and raised in Jersey.
Nice.
Born and raised in Jersey. I grew up, fixing motorcycles, doing BMX and soccer and all these crazy things. I had a great household and mom and dad and everything. And I was a very small kid for whatever reason. I don't know. My mom was 4'11". My dad was 6'2", so I didn't get much of the height. My mother was half Chinese, actually. Half Asian,
Really?
half
Okay.
Chinese, right. And that's what I was mentioning earlier about the genetics. So I think it's... Anyway, so I grew up and, later in my life, I noticed that, girls, I like girls, and they seem to like guys that worked out. So I said, let me start working out, right? So I started to do that. And like I said, I did motorcycles and, I feel like I've done every blue-collar job under the sun that someone can do up until a certain thing. I worked at a junkyard. I was an electrician. I worked at a machine shop. I did motorcycle repair. I did all these things. And then eventually I knew a guy who was a promoter, and he was doing these hot body contests at these nightclubs in Jersey. And he said, you should do it. And I said, well, I don't know about that. It's just I don't have the courage in front of girls and dancing, you know what I mean? So eventually I just said, you know what? I'm going to throw myself to the wolves. And I got out there and did this little routine. And anyway, that's how I got it. I met a gentleman I was there also in the contest, and he said, hey, man, you got a good look. You should dance. And I said, well, he goes, I do this circuit around the Jersey tri-state area, North Jersey,
Okay. New
New York, Delaware. It was a popular thing.
What year was this around?
This was probably 91, 89, 91.
Nice.
89, 90, 91. Yeah, that I started. So I was like, man, this is great. I did this contest. I ended up losing, but, it got me to meet that guy. And then he eventually said, yo, you should dance. And he plugged me into that circuit. And next thing you know, I'm traveling and going up to these nightclubs where they have a ladies' night. And then they got 5 or 6 guys dancing. They called them whatever they called them, Hollywood's hottest hunks, or all these different offshoots. Because Chippendales is what started it, or I should say, the Thunder. They're kind of around the same time, right? Thunder, Chippendales, and then so that's how I got into it. And then I said, screw it, I'm going to quit all these other jobs, killing myself, and start just doing the dancing thing. So I did that for about 10, 12 years, and then as far as how I got into the adult industry.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you get into porn?
Yeah, right. How I got into porn. I started, well.
Was it ever on your radar as a kid? I mean, growing up, coming through high school, was it anything you were, because we all think about fantasizing about it kind of thing.
I guess my introduction to porn was, we as kids living in our neighborhood, one kid would call and say, hey man, I found this box of these magazines or something, And my introduction was my father's bottom dresser drawer. I pulled it out, and there was these Playboy magazines and naked girly pictures, and I'm like, trying to sneak a peek at them and stuff, and I quick shut the drawer and be like, oh my God, I like that stuff.
Mental pictures?
I mean? Yeah, sure. And then, in the neighborhood, a couple kids would be like, I found this movie, or I got this thing, or I got this whatever. And so that's about all we done. We'd stick it in the VCR and play it, and it was all, and we'd watch it. And that was really about it. But I knew I like pretty girls, right? So, I've always had a...
At what age did you find that, you think?
Teenager? I'm 13, 14, 15.
Because that doesn't exist anymore. I think I was born in '96. I think we're the last generation of kids like that. Because we were finding like DVDs maybe.
Right. All digital stuff.
Yeah, DVD, and then we had portable DVD player. Right. So we would take turns in the room, handing the DVD player off kind of thing. Wow. But that doesn't exist anymore. Kids got their phones or the computer or an iPad and straight to the website, right?
Right.
That's kind of funny. That doesn't exist.
Right.
So you loved girls at that time, and then
I was like, oh my God, I know I love these girls and whatever. So, and then I realized as a young kid growing up too, I was very underdeveloped, so to speak, And I thought, man, I'd start working out, get some girls' attention. So it worked out. I started to work out. I got into that world dancing, and I've been dancing and in the adult industry. I refer to that as the adult industry still too, even though it's not. What I'm doing present day. What I do present day is, we perform a sexual act on camera as a product, and it goes somewhere, and it's bought and it's viewed and it's whatever. And years ago we made the big movies, but when we danced, it was still the adult entertainment. Deemed adult entertainment. So I've been doing adult entertainment for 30 years now.
Wow,
probably 32 years.
Over half your life.
Yeah. So. I often wonder, now where I'm at in my life now, I think to myself, could I do anything 9 to 5-ish ever again? We've had this conversation before. I think Marcus and I, and even my friend recently, I'm trying to recall, had so many conversations lately. I'm trying to see who I was talking to. Yeah, and I said, I don't think I could ever do a 9 to 5 job. I'd call my friend, hey, I'm on the roof. I'm doing it. And they're like, get off the roof. You can, don't do it yet. Come back now and we figure out something else. Because I don't think I could do it.
No, you're everybody's favorite stepfather, right?
Yeah. Right. At this point, this whole stepfather thing is right. It's pretty crazy, but luckily that's been happening because that's kind of like been a not a newfound thing because I think porn in some capacity is based on older guy, younger girl anyway. Naturally. In some.
What was your first project? Like, how did you first get approached for it?
Well, here's how it went. I was living in Jersey, dancing. I ended up getting hurt. I got hurt. I used to bodybuild and got real big and giant, and muscular legs and everything. And long story short, an injury basically set me back. I was married at the time, and I was dancing, and this injury kind of took me out of the scene for about a year. And then when I finally bounced back and got up on my feet again, so to speak, I said, screw this. I hate Jersey. I don't like the snow. I don't like whatever. I've been here 29 years. There's a whole world out there. Go see something else, And my friend that I knew, he and I became friends. He was a young guy. I kind of introduced him to the world of the dancing. It's funny, I took him right out of college, and he quit and everything. He started dancing. I was like, oh, no, I feel bad.
Was the money good, though, at the time?
Yeah, it was good. And he'll still to this day, he will say, thank God you got me out of that world because I would have never imagined being in, like, forensics. He wanted to do, like, forensic crime scene investigation or something. And I said, well, that could be awesome, but, think about what you're doing, right? You're looking at dead people or things or stuff of that nature. Maybe could probably be daunting or something. But so he got out of that and got into cosmetology and cuts hair, and now he's a great hair stylist and whatnot. Anyway, so he ended up moving to Florida, and then a year later, after I got injured, I kind of followed suit. He's like, you should come down here. And I told my wife, I said, screw this, I'm done. I'm healed up. Let's go to Florida. It's much nicer all year round. Why be here in Jersey when it's cold and bullshit, right? So.
What part of Florida did you guys move down to?
We went to Sunrise, Tamarack. Okay. So it's the same. So anyway, now I'm there, and we're in the dancing world. I got back on my feet. I had a leg injury, double quadricep tendon rupture, if you can imagine what that sounds like.
How long were you?
It's like a bicep tear.
Yeah. You can't walk.
But it was both legs at the same time on a trampoline, and I was 29 at the time.
Just snapped. Oof.
Ripped off.
What does that sound like?
It sounds like a branch breaking. Literally audible in a close proximity.
Oof.
Yeah, so I'm at the Florida. So now I'm in Florida, healed up, and dancing and, tragically got into the scene of, partying and whatnot and stuff, and because it's all there. And to condense the story, my wife and I, for lack of better words, weren't. It was getting tough, and she decided, I don't want to be around this world or this lifestyle. This is what I'm assuming is something of that nature. So she split, we divorced, and I remained in Florida. And I kind of went on this self-destruction thing, as one would do. It's understandable, right? You just lost somebody you've been with for 4 years, you've been married, you've shared, you've been at their house for Christmas and all these things and love and all that stuff. And she decided to go and do the different direction, and I remained in Florida. You can keep the dog, you can keep the house, you can keep the stuff. It sounds great, but there was still, I had to pay for all these things. Right? Mm-hmm. So, she split and went her way and did her thing. So I remained in Florida. And while I was there, I went on this long, dark period of drug use and whatnot and stuff. And so I eventually got past that, and I danced at a club where that one side was for guys dancing for girls, and the other side was girls dancing for guys. So at the end of the night, we would kind of go over to the girl side and fraternize with the girl dancers, right? And, so I met this one, and we played around and hung out and we got intimate and fooled around. And I remember her vividly laying in bed, smoking, going, man, wow, that was unbelievable. And I'm like, well, thanks. She's like, you should consider making movies. And I thought, what do you mean? She's like, porn. And I said, wow, that's a lot, that's a big, I don't think I could do it. She's like, no, you should, you're built for it. I said, well, thank the, and she said, I've been out to California a couple of times and made a couple of movies. And if you ever want to kind of take a ride with me, take a trip with me, I'll fly you out and take you to California. You can see what it's firsthand, see what it's like.
Wow.
I'll rent a car. I drive the car, carry your bags. So we did. 2 weeks later, jumped in a plane, went to California, landed there, and met in a 10-day. We had a little 10-day little trip there, and she would see producers and directors and stuff, and I would kind of sit in the back, off to the side, and then they would ask her, "What do you do?" And she's like, "Well, I do boy girl, I do boy girl, I do this, I do that. I don't do this, I don't do that." And then after that, they'd go, "Okay, who's that?" And she'd go, "That's Tommy Gunn. He should do it," and this and that and all these things. And I'm over in the corner like, "Oh," I said, "I'm just here to kind of see the lay of the land." And the guy says, "Well, you got a good look, and you would be assuming if you could do it, because not everybody can do it, because a lot of guys like the thought of it. You get to have sex with pretty girls, and then they pay you for it, right?
Right.
Sounds great.
I hear there's some strict requirements for the position.
I mean, sure, you got to be able to do the job at the end of the day, and not everyone can. And even with assistance, you could take a pill, you could do a couple things that they're like sports enhanced, performance
supplements, right?
Well, you got them in. Look, humans have a hack for everything,
right?
So it's not like it's some looked down upon.
Oh no, it's no taboo, right?
Yeah, but some people thought, "Oh yeah, you can't. You're not a real man if you can't fuck in front of 30 people with a camera and a boom and all this stuff and stop and start and stop and start and stop and start for 4 hours." Oh, think about that.
No, that sounds tough.
That's like what any guy can have sex in a couch with his girl at the home, and and there's nobody watching, or there's no time limit, right?
Right. So when she's,
and even then, there's stress. Some guys are give themselves their own anxiety because they want to perform well, right? Mm-hmm. So many guys have performance anxiety even at home. So now you add all those other things, I mean, let's not kid each other. Anyway, so humans create ways to get around certain things, and then, so long story short, the guy, I met a producer on our last day. I met a gentleman who was a director for Wicked Pictures. Wicked was a big company who made big movies, story driven, location, set, wardrobe, period pieces, themed, pirate movie or like a Western or a old gangster or gangster-esque style-esque thing, storyline and whatever. And then in that story, you had certain sex scenes, and certain actresses, and teamed up with certain guys, paired up, and so when I met this guy Brad, he took us out to dinner. Me and the girl were in California. She gets up, excuses herself, and goes off to the powder room and has And I say to him, I said, "Hey man, so this girl, she got me all like, what tells me I should do this business?" And I said, "You're a good, authority on the business. You're a big director, and one of the biggest directors in the industry." And I said, "So what's a guy like me have to do to get into business?" And he says, "Well, it's tough because of all those things." He says, "But generally what happens is you come in with a pretty girl. That's your best way in. Because the girl says, a new girl is awesome, right? New talent is always looked for, right? Who's the next big star, right? So you get a girl who's brand new, and she's beautiful and whatever, and she's sought after by the producer and the director and all these companies, and they say, 'Hey, we would like to do a test shoot,' and then she says, 'I'll do it, but only with him,' and that's your shoe in as a guy, right? If you can if you can line yourself up in that way for a girl to say, 'I'll do it with him,' test shoot, that's your chance to perform and hopefully swing the bat and hit, at least get it around the bases, right? Get a base hit. You don't have to hit a home run.
Yeah.
But,
put it in play somehow.
Yeah. Show that you could do it. And, so that's not what happened in this case. She came back. He gave me his business card, and she and I ended up going back to Florida, and I kept this guy's business card. And, I got back into, at the time I was working on motorcycles because I have that background. I figured, let me dance on the weekends. I'll work on motorcycles and do stuff. And so I got back to Florida, and she kind of went her way. I kind of went mine. And I wasn't sold yet on this idea, but, I got this card, it's kind of like Steven Spielberg gave you a card to become an actor one day. If you can hold on to that, right? So I did. I held on to it, and every couple months, I'd get frustrated and think, fuck, not doing anything exciting. I got this guy's card. Let me pull it out and look at and call him. And so I'd call him and, "Hey man, what's up? Well, it's Tommy Gunn. Yeah, I'm in Florida." He says, "So, this is the conversation we would have. So have you given it any thought?" I said, "Yeah, I think about it every day. I'm just nervous as hell,
Yeah.
Because that's a big step. It's a big, you can't go backwards, right? You do that once, that's it. So I would say, "Hey, I'm just wanted to call and say hi." And he's like, "Say hi to Brett, say hi to Jenna Jameson." I'm like, because he was working on, I'm on set now making a movie. Say hi to this one or that one. And I said, "Hey, whatever." So I would hang up and go, "Shit." So eventually, through time, 4 years took me of back and forth and now, figured it out. Plus, there was a little thing in the back of my mind that, maybe my wife would come back or me, but she would never if she found out I did that. So I always kind of just decided not to. And then eventually 4 years later, I thought, screw it. I'm not getting any younger. By then I was 36, almost 40 years old. And I
Phenomenal
said,
shape.
Yeah, I always treated myself as an athlete. I always, unfortunately, around that time, I was heavily into the drug scene, and it got so bad that, I fled Florida, not for any legal reasons, and I just thought there's so much cocaine and Molly and all this shit going on that if I go back to Philadelphia, two of my friends bought this nightclub, and they said, "Hey, come back." I said, "That's a way. I'll get away from the drugs. I'll go back there." But then I went back there and realized it didn't take long to smell it out, sniff out the drugs again, and boom. So I stayed there for about a year and a half, and then I ended up going back to Florida. All in this 4-year period of when I got the business card of that guy, the director, until when I made the jump to it. I went back to Florida and worked again with the motorcycle guy, and I said, "Hey, I'm trying this yet. I'm not, what's the point? I'm not getting any younger, right?" So I pulled out the card for the last time and said, hey, man, I'm doing it. I'm ready to do it. And he says, okay. By now, like I said, this was 2004. 4 years had went by, and he said, your best bet is to come out to Vegas, where the entire industry has their convention and their big award ceremonies. So the whole business will be there. And that's where I'll take you and I'll introduce you to everybody. So I had this introduction that was priceless. Nobody could, who has that?
Wow.
Who has that intro to the business?
Right.
Who literally has that type of, like I said, you meet a Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg taking it to the Oscars, basically.
Yeah, and you're going to meet everybody and be an actor one day.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that. So I told my boss, hey, I'm going out to California. And he knew who I was. He knew that I had this card. And he goes, you're really going to check this out? I said, yeah, I'm not getting any younger, man. And what's funny was around that time, I had been celibate for about a year and a half.
Wow. So, I mean, did you know at that point that you could still get it up and be hard for hours on end like that?
No, I had no idea.
Wow.
I was just going off the fact that this guy said, come out to Vegas, I'll introduce you to everybody. And then in his defense, he had no capacity that I even could could perform at all.
Dude, that's insane.
And he's like, I sure hope that, So I went out to California, I went out to Vegas, met with him again after 4 years. By then I had long hair. I cut it off and cleaned myself up, so to speak. And I met him, I met him outside of the Sands Convention Center. Convention Center over at the Venetian. I think they neighbor each other. There's these convention halls that are like monumentally huge, like football field inside, right? So the whole entire industry had set up their booths and stuff, and they were all in this building. And I remember meeting him and going through these doors and just seeing this grandeur of like, oh my God, there's Wicked and Vivid and Hustler and Adam and Eve and Digital Playground and Penthouse and all these other companies, huge booths with these flowing curtains and neons, everything, and then people just everywhere, and then lines of guys, which looked like hours long wait to meet Jenna Jameson and Tara Patrick and Janine Lindenmoulder and Julia Ann and Lisa Ann and all the big stars, all the big heavy hitters. Because back then, social media wasn't out yet, so they were still very untouchable.
Right.
And if you wanted to see these girls, you got to go there to see them.
Right. There's no other way to find them.
There's no
other way to see
them in the movie.
That's
or
it.
You go to the convention in Vegas, and then. So he brought me around. He introduced me to every company, every director, every female star, and I got a great reception from a lot of the people.
Wow.
Like, wow, look at this guy, he's in shape. And I was like, yeah, I'm, inside, I'm thinking, cool, they like me, whatever. A lot of girls were like, wow, look at this guy. So I tried to kind of, present myself as best as possible, because it's a physical industry, I didn't want to be some I'll say regular guy, but I wanted to kind of stand out, right? That's what you do and whatever it is you're trying to do, right? So I got all these cards, met a couple people that were even from Philly in the Jersey area. I went back to Florida, and I talked to my boss and said, hey, man, I got bad news for you. He's like, what's that? I said, I'm giving you my 2-week notice. I'm quitting and moving to Vegas, because I knew a girlfriend from years ago, and she said, come to Vegas, and you could sleep on the couch here and then figure out yourself. And then, because she said, you're going to do this, right? I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. She's like, no way, man, you're really going to do this. I said, yeah, I'm going to give it a shot, right? And again, I hadn't had sex in a year and a half.
That's so insane.
Unbelievable, right? I couldn't even imagine. And so when he brought me around, he basically said, just tell him you've done a couple things on the internet. And I said, okay. And I'd meet people, yeah, I shot a couple scenes on the internet. Meanwhile, I haven't shot a damn thing, so I don't know if I could do it or not.
Right.
So I sell everything I own in Florida, which wasn't much. I had an old beat-up truck and a motorcycle on a trail, and I pulled it all out and drove across country. I actually brought my boss's nephew. He was a younger guy, and he said, I'll take the drive with you. And I said, I'll fly you home. So I drove across country with him, and he's like, I can't believe we're driving across country for you to go become a porn star. I said, well, I don't know, man. Hopefully it works because I may fail miserably and have to go home.
Yeah, this was literally your Hollywood.
Yeah. So he got to Vegas with me. He flew home. Now I'm in Vegas at my just old girlfriend's house, sleeping on the couch, waiting. And this guy Brad says, "I'm going to call you and tell you when your first movie is." So I'm kind of just sitting around waiting in Vegas, and I get a call. He says, "Okay, I got all your information. February 16. Call time is 9 a.m. Location is this laundromat. You're going to meet there, and you'll find myself. You'll find me there, and then we'll get you all straightened up. You're gonna be this character in the movie." It's kind of nameless character. So what he did was he was smart. He set up a scene in the movie where I was just kind of like a guy coming into this laundromat who had to go to the bathroom. You know, I'm like, fuck, I gotta use the bathroom. So I come in and I go into the bath. I go to the bathroom, and then here comes the owner of the. This is the story. Here comes the owner of the laundromat. It's Randy Spears. And if you know anything about the industry, he's a big legendary guy back there. So back in the day, Randy Spears. Here I am, my first day. I'm acting opposite of like Robert De Niro, figuratively speaking.
Right.
But Randy Spears in the business. He's got a hairnet on, and he's got some accent, like he's a foreigner. And he goes, "You can't use the bathroom." And I go, "Why not?" He goes, "Read the sign." And I read the sign, and it says, "Customers only." So I go, "Shit." And I think, okay. Take my shirt off. I go over to a washing machine. I throw it in, stick some quarters in it, shut the thing, right? And I go back to the door to open up the door. And he goes, "Can't use the bathroom without no shoes, no shirt, no service." And I'm like, oh, shit. So there's a girl in the movie set up. She's doing laundry. She's noticing all this. And she says, she notices that I'm having this dilemma with the guy. I'm just trying to use the bathroom. Come in, use it, and leave. So she gives me a T-shirt out of her little laundry, and it's this tiny little girl's T-shirt that says "bad bitch" on it. And it's like a kid's shirt, small. She throws it to me, and I go, "Oh, I get it. Let me put a shirt on, so now I can go in the bathroom." So I put a shirt on, squeeze on, and it's the smallest shirt ever. And then I go over to the door, and he gets a huff, and he walks off. So now I go in to use the restroom. And what Brad did, what he did to set up the scene was, he just made it where I was just some patron kind of use the restroom. So I go in, shut the door, and the girl, she kind of gets this little idea like, I'm going to go sneak into the restroom. And she goes in, and inside, it's just a blowjob scene. It's not a full sex scene. So we figured, let me test the water with this guy, and let's see if he can at least get it up in that context.
Right.
So in the restroom was me and the girl and just the camera guy. So it wasn't a ton of people. Because, you intimidate a guy with put him in front of 20 people with lights and a camera, whatever.
Yeah, a little camera shot, right?
You might have problems, right? So that was his way of kind of testing the waters and see how I did. And then I did fine. And then
imagine how bad that could have went if you were like taking a shit and she came in instead.
Yeah. That wasn't in the. But imagine.
Yeah, not in the script.
Shit, So she comes in, we do the thing, and everything works fine. And he goes, "Good, you did well." Now I can tell all the other directors that I know in my network that he can at least perform. So then he.
Were you nervous at all in that first scene?
I was flipped out. I was like, "Oh my God, can I do this?" And so.
But I mean, did it take a while to get up at all? Like, do you have to remain soft until they say get hard? How does that process work?
Well, that kind of helps because it looks real, versus pull the pants down and there's things up here.
So like the nervous part kind of helps a little bit?
Yeah, because it's, and then I just remember in my mind saying to myself, I've done this before. I've had sex with plenty of girls,
right?
Prior to the business. Not a ton, but, having been a male dancer, you would think you'd screw everybody. But so I said, I'm concentrating. Ended up fine and did the job. So that was kind of my introduction to the business in the first scene. And then once he said everything was good, he called another director that I knew, that I met, who was from Philadelphia, and he said, "Oh, you Philly guy, Jersey boy." He says, "I'll give you a hand." And so he gave me my first real sex scene, and that was tough because of just the obvious. Now I'm in another setting with a boom guy, couple more guys, and a girl, and now I'm supposed to go through the oral. It's like a standard kind of cookie cutter scene. Is you got oral on the guy, oral on the girl, and then you got 4 positions, and then you got the money shot at the end, and then you go home. But you got to be able to do all those things. So I was having some problems in this moment, going up and down, and the director the camera guy kind of sensed something, and the girl, she kind of got a sense of, hold on. She says, "Cut." She tells the director, "You get out of here. Leave me with him." So he leaves, gives us some privacy. The sound guy and the camera guy and the director leave. So now it's just me and her, and she says, "You're not paying. You're not concentrating." I said, "Yeah, I'm just." So she kind of, she said, "Look, forget about these guys. Forget about the camera. Forget about everything. Just imagine it's just you and I." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "We're on the beach. We're drinking Coronas, and nobody else is here." And I'm like, "Okay." So we screw around, we kiss, she's kind of getting me going, because these are things that get you going.
Yeah, what a pro, right? Dude. That was amazing.
Yeah, she did that, right? Instead of throwing her arms in the cross and going, "What the fuck?"
This guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, some girls are, strangely enough, like that. It's really strange.
What a pro. Do you remember who that was?
Mason Storm.
Wow.
My first scene was with Cherokee. Just one name. That's her name, Cherokee. She was great. Mason Storm was my second scene, my real boy-girl scene. So she kind of took me by the hand and got me through it. And that was great, because we're not machines. Even if you take something, it still might not work.
Right.
You're flipped out, and you're nervous, and what the fuck, and your dick says no, and your body says no. I don't care what you do. It's not going to,
Just going to get the heart pumping.
Yeah, look like your head's going to pop off. You know what I'm saying? Fucking head.